there, John. Hope you guys are having a great road trip. As your video lesson for today. If you have any questions at the end, feel free to shoot them on over to me, and I will do my best to answer. So cool. So two things I want to talk about. One is the tune in Bloom. I'm going to go over the chorus. And then number two is understanding Kurt Cobain and Nirvana's writing style, and maybe on a deeper level. It actually would be kind of a really cool project if you want to take it on. What we could do is we could look at a bunch of Nirvana songs and kind of just pick them apart and see kind of like what makes them tick, because there's always something in there. So cool. I'll talk about that more in a few minutes. So the first thing is the chorus. The chords for the chorus are going to be a B flat 5. I'm using my rat right now, so I have my B flat 5. And it goes to G5. And it goes back and forth between those two chords 4 times. It sounds like this. Right. So chords should be easy enough. The rhythm is what we'll probably want to spend some time on. So you have your B flat 5. Down, up, down, down. 1, a 2, and 1, a 2, and is the rhythm for that. Ba, da, da, da. And he's going to go to G flat 5, G5. Now, looking in the tab for this tune, they're not like there's like no one measure that's like consistent throughout. So it's like you just have to remember like this huge long string, or probably wasn't where it's happening. He's just playing, and they just, like we always say, they just captured what they captured that day on the recording. I imagine if we looked at 10 different live versions of In Bloom, we're gonna find 10 different strum patterns for all this stuff, in addition to like some like crazy like feedback squeals and all kinds of crazy stuff that's happening there, or different pedals that he's using for that day. Not consistent. But that's what makes him. So we have if you want to make like a nice kind of like presentation version, like if this is a strum pattern that like is something that he would do, this is a good one right here. So we have B flat 5, down, 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 jack, rabbit, down, 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 jack, rabbit. So I just say that jack, rabbit. Liam can do that for one of his twinkles too if he'd like. So you have down, up, down, down, jack, rabbit, down, up, down, jack, rabbit, down, up, down, jack, rabbit, right? And then, so he does that 4 times, and then he goes to C and then E flat. And for those, he's using an A form cage chord. So the shape looks like this. It's a root 5 form chord, right? So our home note here is on the 5th string, so I find a C on the 5th string. There it is right there on the 3rd fret. Found it great. Right? I think that sounds better than... It sounds a little more full to me. So we have C, so down, jack, rabbit. So there's 2 jackrabbits on that C chord, so jack, rabbit. Then he hops up here to E flat on the 5th string. So it's here at the 6th fret. He's gonna go Mississippi, jack, rabbit, Mississippi. Jack, rabbit, Mississippi, jack, rabbit, Mississippi. And I forgot to write down how many times he does that. 4, I guess I can go look. He does that a bunch of times. So he has jack, rabbit, Mississippi, jack, rabbit, Mississippi. So the whole chorus is going to sound like this. Down, up, down, down, jack, rabbit, down, up, down, jack, rabbit, down, up, down, jack, rabbit, down, up, down. Jack, rabbit, Mississippi, jack, rabbit, Mississippi. Right, 4 times. Right? And as you see by me strumming, like, to keep that consistent like a rock song, they're just following the beat, basically. They're kind of following like a rhythmic skeleton, and they're just kind of filling in the spots or doing little fills with the strum pattern. So Cool. That's like the way to play the song. Now the why is what I find more interesting. And this is a cool project that we can take on if you want to. Is we could do a bunch of Nirvana songs and like learn how to play them, obviously, but then figure out like if there are things in his music that are always there, right? So like the reason why the Rolling Stones sound like the Rolling Stones is because they do these certain devices all the time. David Gilmour sounds like David Gilmour because he uses Dorian pentatonic, right? He doesn't use like in the newer stuff he does a little bit, but he doesn't use a whole lot of the major scales in Dark Side of the Moon. So if you want to sound like him, you're just not going to use those scales. So you're going to use those pentatonic scales, and then use those chord changes that he's using. Same thing here with Nirvana, right? They sound like Nirvana because they use like these 5 same things all the time in their writing style. And then you have to come at it a certain way. So this is not Bach. Oh, actually, it's interesting. So if Bach didn't sit down one day at the keyboard or his organ or harpsichord and go, okay, I'm going to write like Bach now, right? He wrote what he heard in his head, and then scholars come by later and go, okay, these are like the things that he does consistently, and they write those down, and then they go and they start a university program, and then they start teaching common practice counterpoint based off of that, right? So it wasn't like he had a rule book he was following. He would break his own rules sometimes. Same thing with this here, like, Kurt Cobain didn't sit down. He's not schooled at all, obviously, right? Like, he did not probably take lessons. He might have had one lesson in his life, if that. So when you analyze him, you don't want to come at it the same way you would analyze classical music, right? So you have to figure out a way to, like, how are we going to categorize this stuff? And so we're not looking at chords with function. Like, this chord doesn't go to that chord, it has to go to this chord. It doesn't work like that. Bach works like that, this doesn't. Right? So what we have to do is we have to go, okay, how are we going to categorize these chord changes and then make some sort of sense out of them, and then how can we replicate that? And I think the way to do this, firstly, there's different ways of doing it. You can look at your chords, like what chords does he use? Like he's not using major 7 chords, like he's not using jazz chords. So if you want to write again, you're not going to use those chords. So you can categorize what chords is he, or what chords is he using. Right? Like he's using a lot of A form in this one, right? He's using power chords, right? Things like that. You start writing those things down. That way when you go to write like him, you use those. But I think for today at least, because that's a huge topic, is to analyze the chords and then like what order are they going in. And one way I kind of found by looking at this grunge style music is using the chord wheel. Not in the way that it was originally intended, right? No, there we go. Not the way it was originally intended. Like, say for example, like, okay, we're gonna move our key to like B flat, and then he's only gonna stay inside of here because he's very following the rules a lot. I think it would be better to categorize this as how far away does he move from the center, right? So the song begins and ends on a B flat chord, right? So that's kind of like our center. Right? Things revolve around that. So we'll make that our key. So that B flat, right? He's not atonal, right? He's not like doing 12-tone row stuff or serialism or just like incidental music. Or free improvisation. He still has a center, right? Then that's the way he has a tune. Right? So we have to treat it that way. It has a center. So we're going to treat B flat like our center for this one. Okay, so if we treat B flat like our center, right, I'm going to move my key here to B flat, right? That's my center. And I wrote a bunch of other stuff on here that you probably can't see on this video, but I can show you in person next, or on the Zoom next time. So we have our B flat. And I'm gonna call this center here prime, right? This is our center, our prime spot. So we'll call this the center right here. All these chords are our center. And B flat is home base right here. If we look at the chords, if you look at each row here, I'm gonna make the next set outside of this, I'm gonna call that secondary. And I'll call this one secondary right here. So you can mark up yours too with a dry erase. I don't recommend using permanent marker because in case you want to do something else with this. So I call this secondary, like the secondary layer, right? And I call the next one out the tertiary layer. And I call the next one out augmented layer. Right? So we're out this far right here, and then this is just outside. Right? We'll talk about that in a second. And I have to come at this by having no like preconceived like it's going to be this, it's going to be that, like because then I'm just kind of like coming with an idea and then making everything conform to my idea. What I'm going to do is I'm going to analyze this that way, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, that's fine too. We'll think of another name for it, or call it passing material. Is what we do in college. We don't know that chord function as, let's call it as a passing 6/4 and call it a day. And then you get a C on your paper for at least attempting to give some sort of answer. So coming at this, he's at prime, right? And then the next chord, so the B flat's the first thing he opens up with, right? He's here. And then he goes to G. Right? So he's a B flat, okay? And then he goes to G. And G would be over here. So I call it, that's the third row right there. So I call that tertiary. So he has a prime to 3. So I call that 1 to 3 for shorthand. So you have a prime to a tertiary or a 1 to a 3 relationship on that chord wheel. And then he goes to F. F is still inside a prime, right? So I'll call that another prime. So he went prime, tertiary, prime. So it sounds like this. So he leaves like home base, but he comes back though, right? To give it some sort of like glue to hold it together, maybe. So we have. Right? And then he goes to A flat. It sounds super cool. And A flat is definitely not inside of prime. A flat is going to be, where is it? There is a secondary. So we had a prime to a tertiary to a prime to a secondary relationship. And then that riff revolves around and around and around, right? And in the next section, he comes back to B flat. So you can say he went home base, outside of home base, outside of home base, and then back again, right? So if you want to write like an intro like Nirvana, you just go, okay, I can start with my B flat, maybe have like 1 or 2 chords in here that you come back to, and you go outside of it and you come back. So if I did that, say for example, I'm going to go really far out. I'll go B flat to D, back to, then I'll go E flat because that's still inside of my primary, and then I'm going to go to G flat, right? So I'm going to go B flat, D, E flat, G flat. I'm going to try to remember that. I'm going to probably forget it though. I'm going to put this here so I try to remember what it is said. So B. Okay, then where are we going? Yeah, not half bad. I kind of like it. Yeah, that sounds better. I like it going up. So there you go. I just wrote a riff using the tools that Kurt Cobain used in his intro for In Bloom. So I'll do that one more time. Let's see if it sounds any good. It'd be cool as like a build-up section. Yeah, that would work as like since we're like into a break where they like go like just in some crazy feedback thing. If I play it like, so I did that with power chords. Now I'm going to do it with A form chords, kind of like how Kurt Cobain does it in the chorus of the song. See if that makes it any better. So. Pixies-ish. that's how you write a grunge riff. Cool. So that was the intro. Now, just one occurrence of it isn't enough to prove anything, right? I could find that in like, I go to Stravinsky and I'll find the same thing probably, right? So I have to keep on digging deeper to find more evidence that this is actually like a real thing that is a thing that happens in his music a lot. If we find like a bunch of them more often than not, then it's like, okay, then this is a real thing. So then I'm going to hop over to the verse section, right? And then I'm going to go, those chords for the verse are going to be B flats to G flats, E flat, E, A. So but good. Right? Now if I had to analyze that classically, it would be like really messy, like in terms of like things aren't functioning the way they're functioning. Things are just going wherever they want. But if we analyze it with the chord wheel in our hypothesis of like everything's always going from prime as the center, we can deviate from prime, but we're always coming back to prime, more often than not. Then let's see if that holds true. So we have B flat still is our home base, right? Because we have to have something the glue holding it together. So we got a B flat chord, right? And then he's going to go to G flat. And that is a pretty big jump right there. He's going B flat and then G flat. So one bar of B flat, and then he goes to G flat for one bar. He goes augmented, so he goes like about as far as you're going to go without going outside, which we'll talk about in a second. So we go B flat into G flat. Right? So he had a pretty big leap right there. So we have the prime to augmented, or a 4 level, and then he's going to go to E flat. And E flat still lives in prime, so I'm going to call that prime. So he came back to the center right here. So he came back to this. And then, so that sounds like this. So he's here at prime. He leaves prime, he goes augmented. He comes back to a chord that's in the prime section, right? So that's still within our key, right? So he's here, he leaves. He comes back to it, but then he does this. Now, the other chords that were there were one bar in length, right? So B flat's 1 bar, G flat's 1 bar, E flat is 1 bar. And the B flat and A are half a bar apiece, so they're 1 bar in total. So we have 4 measures here. So we have B flat to a G flat, the E flat, and then he goes to B to A, and that's like, whoa. He just like leaves everything. He leaves Earth behind. So he's here at B flat. We leave, we go to G flat. We come back to E flat. And then we go all the way over here. We leave like my categorization, my wheel. So he goes B to A for 1 bar. So it's not like he's leaving for 2 bars. He leaves for 1 bar. He goes outside. So I'm just going to call that outside. He left, right? Any chord is fair game at this point, right? So he goes to B to A. And so unfortunately, Kurt Cobain didn't get my memo, and that he has to follow his own rules. So I'm thinking for this one, he's at prime. He leaves, he goes augmented. He comes back to prime. He goes outside completely, but then don't forget, everything is a circle in this kind of music, right? He just is just this riff that he plays over and over again, which means that he comes back to prime, right? So if he were to end the song, he'd end it here. So prime, augmented, prime, augmented, prime, outside, back to prime. So prime, outside, prime, or so prime, something not other than prime, prime, something other than prime, prime, something other than prime. And we can categorize how far he goes by labeling those secondary, tertiary, augmented, or just outside. So cool. So far I'm starting to see a pattern where it's like in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out. And that's something that we can label his music as, because remember, he's not sitting down as a theoretician. He's just playing his guitar and whatever sounds he likes. And so maybe he likes that inside, outside thing in terms of his chords. Right, so his harmonic choices are, he's not, I'm sure he's not thinking about it, but it's a way for us to come back behind, the same way that people came back behind when doing analyzing Bach or Mozart or whatever, and they want to write like Mozart, here are his things that he does. Same way that we're coming behind Kurt Cobain and going, okay, these are the things that he did, right? Or does or did. He might be hanging out with Biggie or Tupac or something. So he's coming, he's inside the key, he's outside. He's inside, he's outside. So if we were to write a riff like him, we would just go, okay, every other chord from B flat would just be outside. So you go B flat, to a C, to an F, to A flat. Right? Or I could do this, a B flat, to a G, to an F, to a D. Right? You have to play around with it and see what works best. But anyway, cool. So there's my long tirade on Kurt Cobain's writing style. And if you want to talk more about this or look at his music deeper on many levels, this is just a harmonic analysis. We can also look at it. We already did his timbre analysis. We look at what pedals he's using, what gear he's using to sound like him. And this is just the next step. Like, what chords are he using? What order does he put them in? Or which ones does he prefer? And what are some of his idiosyncrasies? So if you'd like to do more of this, let me know, and we'll just keep on going down this path. If not, we'll just learn riffs. All right, then. I'll see you. Have a great vacation. Have a happy Thanksgiving. I'll see you next time. Bye.